Her smile was my safe place. I discovered it was a weapon aimed at my throat. She called it Amari. Age, but I was just a placeholder in her plan to disappear with our kids. You never really know the person lying beside you, not until the day their smile becomes a knife pressed gently to your throat. My name is Thomas. I'm 35, a lead software engineer in a rising tech firm in Portland. And for more than a decade, I believed I was living the kind of life other men envied: a radiant wife, 2 extraordinary children, and a marriage people called storybook. Turns out, the story I was in had a far darker ending. 12 years. That's how long it took for the facade to splinter. I met Patricia during our undergrad days at a university tucked between redwood groves and coastal fog. She didn't just walk into a room, she took possession of it. Men admired her, yes, but it wasn't just her looks. Patricia had this intellect that burned hot and bright, like it could incinerate you if you got too close. One moment she'd quote Rambo, the next she'd explain Schrodinger's equation like she'd written it herself. And she chose me. Out of everyone. I remember the night I proposed, trembling hands, a borrowed ring, and that look she gave me like I was the center of her universe. We married the summer after graduation. I spent every day afterward trying to be the man she seemed to believe I already was. We built our lives in a picturesque neighborhood in the Willamette Valley, quaint colonial house, the kind with ivy climbing the porch rails and a backyard strung with lights for summer dinners and snowball fights in winter. Our children, John and Robert, brought the place to life. John, 10, was already wise beyond her years, a sharp tongue when she was irritated, a softer heart when no one was watching. Robert, our 7-year-old whirlwind, had a laugh that could crack through the worst days. While I buried myself in long hours of code and clients, Patricia orchestrated our world like a maestro, flawless, gracious, admired by everyone. Parents at school adored her. Neighbors called her an angel in designer shoes. And she was at least in public. At home, she floated through mornings with choreographed grace, always awake by 6:30, green tea in hand, reading the day's news with Chopin humming faintly in the background. I used to watch her, half-dressed for work, and think, how did I get this lucky? Every morning ended the same. A kiss at the doorway. Her voice warm as sunlight. Have a beautiful day, darling. I'll be waiting. And she always was waiting, apron on, kitchen filled with the scent of rosemary chicken or Moroccan stew and that incandescent smile that made coming home feel like arriving at the gates of heaven. We spent weekends as a family, farmers markets, trail hikes, oceanside picnics. Patricia knew every stall vendor by name, asked about their mothers, their pets, their dreams. She never forgot a face or a story. She bartered like a diplomat, always leaving people smiling. John would collect sea glass on the rocky beaches of Cannon Bay while Robert ran barefoot through the waves, fearless and free. At dinner parties, we were the gold standard. Other couples watched us like we held some secret. I'd top off Patricia's wine without asking. She'd brush her fingers along my wrist when I made her laugh. We were seamless, fluid two halves of a singular thing. You guys are unreal, our friend Jennifer once whispered after a night of too much wine. You're what the rest of us pretend to be. I wish she'd been wrong. But paradise rots quietly from the roots up. The more perfect the surface, the more certain the decay underneath. And when it breaks like glass, sharp, sudden, and impossible to ignore. It started on a Tuesday evening in March. Rain against the windows, the usual gray hush of Portland weather. I pushed the door open, expecting to find Patricia sipping her tea or folding laundry with a podcast humming in the background. Instead, she was at the dining table, hunched over her laptop, typing like her life depended on it. The moment my key clicked in the lock, she snapped the lid shut too fast. Reflexively fast. Hey, I said, stepping into the room, coat damp and breath catching on something I didn't yet understand. What's that you're working on? Patricia didn't miss a beat. That smile, polished, practiced, appeared instantly. Linda's birthday, she said breezily. Just organizing some ideas. I nodded, but something inside me shifted. Like stepping onto what you think is solid ground only to feel it tremble rubber-teeth you. Linda's birthday wasn't until August. She kissed my cheek. Her lips were warm. Her hands weren't trembling. But mine were. The truth doesn't arrive with fanfare. It seeps in quiet, persistent, corrosive. And over the next few weeks, the life I thought I knew began to unravel, thread by thread. Patricia started taking her phone everywhere, into the bathroom, the laundry room, even the backyard at night under the guise of getting some air. She'd vanish behind closed doors for 20, 30 minutes at a time. When she returned, her cheeks were flushed, her voice clipped, her explanations paper-thin. PTA drama, she said once, brushing past me. They're trying to reorganize the spring fundraiser. Another time, my mother's specialist won't return my calls. Her mother had been dead for 3 years. Then there were the late nights. She claimed the nonprofit she volunteered for was expanding new branches, bigger responsibilities, a sudden need for her to help restructure their digital presence. At first, I believed her. Why wouldn't I? But then I noticed the scent. She'd return home steeped in someone else's cologne, expensive, musky, masculine. It clung to her clothes, her hair, her skin. "Don't touch me, I need a shower," she'd say, shrugging off my embrace. Her voice carried irritation, not fatigue. And that bed, once our sanctuary, had become a no-man's land. She stacked pillows between us like barricades, saying she was tossing too much in her sleep, didn't want to wake me. The excuses were like smoke, thick, choking, but never solid. Even her appetite changed. Patricia, who used to steal half my fries with a grin and insist on elaborate brunches every weekend, began nibbling at food like it offended her. Intermittent fasting, she claimed. This new cleanse, it's transformative. She dropped 15 pounds in 2 months, and when I gently expressed concern, she didn't meet my eyes. "So now you're monitoring what I eat?" she snapped. "You trying to control my body now too?" Her words cut like they'd been sharpened for that exact moment. But the breaking point, the moment everything inside me cracked, came on a Friday night. We were sitting at the table, the kids upstairs, their laughter muffled behind closed doors. Patricia's phone buzzed beside her plate. She glanced at the screen, and all the color drained from her face. For a second, she looked like she'd seen a ghost. "I need to take this," she said abruptly, snatching the phone and walking down the hall. I followed quietly. The walls of our home were thinner than she remembered. I stood outside our guest bathroom, listening to her whispered conversation through the sliver of space Robert at the door. "I miss you too," she said, her voice trembling. "No, soon. I promise. Just be patient, okay?" He still doesn't know. Silence. Then, "I hate lying. But I'll make it right." The call ended. And that name. That single, brutal name. William. It hit me like a brick to the ribs. William. Her college flame. I'd heard his name once, maybe twice, early in our relationship. She'd told me it was intense but unsustainable. He'd gone overseas for some high-flying consulting role in Europe after graduation. They drifted, she said. Lost touch. She even thanked the universe for ending things, once telling me if it hadn't fallen apart with him, I never would have found you. Now here he was, whispered through the door of our home like a secret prayer. When Patricia returned to the table, I forced my voice to stay casual. "Who was that?" She smiled, quick and practiced. "My sister. Some drama with the kids." But her sister lived across town, and I glimpsed the number and out-of-state area code. I didn't argue. I just nodded, swallowed my rage, and waited for the night to end. That night, once Patricia was asleep, her back turned, her body walled off from mine, I did something I had never done in 12 years of marriage. I went through her phone. My hands shook as I opened her messages. Most had been wiped clean, but a few fragments remained, scraps of digital betrayal. "Can't wait to see you again. Thomas doesn't suspect anything. The kids will understand eventually. Our time is coming soon." I stared at the glowing screen, the blue light searing into my vision like acid. My chest felt like it was collapsing inward. This wasn't flotation. This was premeditation. She was planning something. Something that didn't include me. But I wasn't going to confront her, not yet. I'd built a career on logic, precision, and control. If I'd learned anything from a decade in systems engineering, it was this: never act on emotion alone. Observe, compile, confirm, and then strike. The next morning, while Patricia left for her yoga class, I began digging. A quick search revealed everything I needed. William had returned to the U.S. just 3 months earlier. He'd landed a high-level position at Covington & Rowe, a global consulting firm headquartered in downtown Seattle, less than an hour from our home. He was married now. His wife, a corporate attorney named Barbara, had a pristine public profile, volunteer work, bar association awards, high-powered interviews in lifestyle magazines. They had 2 children, Susan, age 6, and Richard, 4. His LinkedIn photo showed him as he always had been: clean-cut, composed, painfully charming. But now there was something else. That smug, seasoned polish men wear when they've stepped on people to get where they are. I stared at his photo for a long time. Then I saved it to my phone. I wasn't sure yet what I was going to do with it. But I knew this. I wasn't going to be anyone's collateral damage. Not again. Not ever. I didn't sleep that weekend. My body might have been in bed, but my mind was elsewhere. Buried in shadows, decoding the life I thought I understood. While Patricia took the kids on a wellness hike with her yoga circle, I stayed home and tore through digital history like a man searching for the fuse before the explosion. I installed a forensic recovery tool on our shared laptop. Nothing sophisticated, just enough to lift deleted emails and cached files she assumed were long gone. What I found hollowed me out. Their correspondence went back 6 months. Hundreds of messages. Long threads of carefully worded betrayal. They'd reconnected over LinkedIn. A simple message from William, innocuous, even charming. Saw your profile. Can't believe it's been this long. Hope you're still making the world brighter. Patricia. Her reply seemed innocent enough at first. Talk of mutual friends. Nostalgia about old professors. A photo of the campus clock tower. A slow dance back into each other's lives. But then it turned. I think about you every day, William wrote weeks later. Moving back to Oregon feels like the universe is correcting its mistake. I never should have let you go. And Patricia, my wife, the mother of my children, responded, I've thought about you for 15 years. Thomas is a good man, but he isn't you. He never was. Sometimes, when he's lying beside me, I close my eyes and pretend it's you instead. Reading those words felt like choking on glass. The affair wasn't physical. It was surgical, planned, cunning. They'd met in secret, early morning coffee errands. Long lunches she'd claimed were non-profit strategy sessions. She even invented college friends to explain weekend getaways. Receipts confirmed it, lavish hotels in Ashland and Yachits. Rooms charged to a card I'd never seen before. The email confirmations had been sent to a private account she hadn't used since college. But the affair was only the surface. Robert teethed it. Something darker stirred. They weren't just rekindling a lost romance. They were orchestrating my destruction. Methodically, deliberately, and with almost military precision. Patricia had been siphoning money from our joint accounts for months. At first, it was barely noticeable. $45 for yoga mats, $80 for school supplies, $200 for some ambiguous online certification. But the amounts grew. By the time I noticed, she'd funneled more than $40,000 into a private account she dubbed her Freedom Fund. But money was just the beginning. What truly chilled me, what made my skin crawl and my breath go shallow, was her manipulation. She'd been recording me. Not once, not twice, routinely, secretly, for months. I found the files neatly stored in a hidden folder on her drive. Hundreds of audio clips, some labeled by date, others by subject. Thomas, anger, Thomas, parenting, Thomas, control. When I listened, I nearly vomited. They weren't real, or rather, they were real pieces, stitched into something monstrous. She'd taken harmless phrases and spliced them into fabricated narratives. One file combined a passing complaint about my workload. This is driving me insane. I could scream, and placed it immediately after she asked, what should we do for dinner? It sounded like I was screaming over pasta. In another clip, she'd edited my dry joke about bedtime routines. He needs more structure, maybe boot camp, and manipulated the tone to suggest I was threatening Robert with physical punishment. I recognized my voice, my cadence, but the context was gone, twisted, weaponized. She wasn't just collecting Grijosefsies. She was building a legal case. I opened her browser history. Keywords popped up like landmines. Custody strategy, how to prove emotional abuse, narcissistic partner divorce preparation, evidence admissibility Oregon Family Court. Then I found the emails. I've got enough now to bury him, she'd written William. My lawyer says the recordings alone prove emotional instability. Full custody, alimony, maybe even supervised visitation, if I play it right. He has no idea. Still thinks we're going through a rough patch. William's reply? You're brilliant, love. By the time he realizes what's happening, we'll be halfway across the Atlantic. Margaret's getting suspicious, but I've got her distracted with work drama. Once she's out of the picture and you're free, we'll take all 4 kids and vanish. They'll adjust. Kids always do. There it was. The full plan. Steal the children. Erode my character. Gut me in court. Rewrite our history in her favor. The most painful part? How good they were at pretending. All this time, while Patricia hummed her morning melodies and made waffles with Robert, she was composing the final movement of my undoing. I leaned back in my chair, fists clenched, chest heaving. My reflection stared back from the dark screen, haunted, pale, older somehow. They thought I wouldn't see it coming, that I'd keep smiling through the storm while they tightened the noose. But they underestimated the wrong man. They forgot what I do for a living. I don't just write code. I find flaws in systems, and then I break them apart. Their blueprint was flawless in theory. Strip away the marriages like old wallpaper, paint themselves as victims of toxic love, and step into the bright, polished future they believed they deserved. Patricia would file first, alleging emotional abuse, claiming she feared for the children's safety, portraying herself as a trapped woman finally breaking free. William would echo the script, a man caught in a sterile, joyless marriage who had stumbled upon a second chance at happiness with the one that got away. They even had a name for it, our destiny love story. But Robert teethed the romanticized language, their emails betrayed something far colder. They spoke of our children, John and Robert, not as people, but as pawns. Obstacles? Assets to be managed for maximum gain. Patricia wrote, "Children are resilient. Once this charade is over, they'll have the life they deserve. John's smart, she'll come around. She knows something's off. And Robert, he'll forget Thomas soon enough. He's still young enough to reset." Reset. Like he was a game console or a spreadsheet cell. William, ever pragmatic, responded, "Susan and Richard barely see me now. Margaret's trained them into her routines. It's probably cleaner to leave them with her. Starting over with just your kids might be simpler anyway, less friction in a blended setup." I sat in silence, reading those words over and over. There was no empathy. No recognition of the pain they were planning to inflict. Just cold arithmetic. Two futures drawn up in bullet points. One built on scorched earth. I printed everything. Every email. Every deleted message I'd recovered. Screenshots of chats. Bank transfers. IP logs. Hotel confirmations. Then I made copies, one stored at my office downtown, another in a safety deposit box under a shell name, and a third with my brother Joseph in Seattle, locked in his gun safe alongside the family heirlooms. But even with the avalanche of evidence, I knew better than to go charging in with righteous fury. Patricia had crafted her trap carefully. If I moved too soon, I'd fall straight into it. And if I waited too long, she might spring it herself with a judge's blessing. So I called in an expert. Thomas Chen, a private investigator recommended by a colleague who'd survived his own legal hell's cape of a divorce, came highly praised for his discretion and precision. No theatrics. Just results. Within a week, Thomas delivered them in neat folders labeled Evidence, MH. There were photos dozens. Patricia and William entering the Meridian Hotel in downtown Salem hand in hand like newlyweds. Patricia laughing over lunch at a boutique cafe in Cannon Beach, her eyes shining the way they used to when she looked at me. A close-range photo of them in William's black Audi, her head on his shoulder, his fingers tangled in her hair. The photographs weren't the worst of it. Thomas had uncovered that Patricia had already met with 3 divorce attorneys, each in a different city, seeking advice on how to weaponize her false narrative. She presented her edited recordings and cherry-picked emails, shopping them around like ammunition, asking each attorney the same question. How do I get full custody, primary residence, and maximum alimony with proof of emotional abuse? She'd even consulted one attorney notorious for aggressive litigation tactics, someone who specialized in destroying the opposing spouse's reputation in court. My blood boiled, but I stayed calm. I had the truth. What I needed now was the timing, the precise moment to flip the entire table without giving her a chance to clear the board first. That moment arrived sooner than I expected. It was a Thursday evening, late September. The kids were at a sleepover. The house was quiet, unnaturally so. Patricia had cooked salmon with lemon herb butter, my favorite. She'd lit candles, opened a bottle of Syrah we'd been saving since our 10th anniversary. The scent of rosemary floated through the air. She wore that sapphire dress, the one from our last vacation, the one I used to think she saved for special memories. She handed me a cup of coffee with both hands. Sat across from me. Her smile, radiant, deliberate, cut through me like a scalpel wrapped in silk. Then she reached across the table, fingers grazing mine. Her touch was warm, familiar. For a moment, just one cruel, fleeting second, I remembered the girl I'd met in college. The late-night debates in coffee shops. The long walks under autumn leaves. Her head on my chest as we planned out a life that now existed only in the ashes of old intentions. I've been thinking, she said softly, as if revealing a secret. About us. About how we lost ourselves in routine. Maybe we need to talk about what's next, what's best for the kids. For you. For me. I looked into her eyes and I saw none of the warmth I remembered. Only calculation. Masked in kindness. Poison in perfume. She thought I was still asleep. She had no idea I was already awake. Thomas, she began, voice soft as velvet, eyes wide with practiced concern, I think we need to talk about our marriage. She folded her hands gently like a confessor preparing to cleanse her soul. I've been doing a lot of thinking lately about us, about the past few years. I think maybe we've both been unhappy for longer than we're willing to admit. Her words were smooth, her delivery almost flawless, like a script she'd practiced until the pauses felt authentic. She spoke of emotional distance, of diverging paths, of needing space to rediscover herself as a woman, not just a wife or a mother. I'll always care about you, she said, reaching for my hand with mock tenderness. But I'm not in love with you anymore. I think we need to consider separation for everyone's sake. Especially the kids. She exhaled deeply, as if she'd just unburdened herself of something noble. This marriage is over, Thomas, she concluded, her thumb brushing across the back of my hand. And I'm sorry. I really am. I met her gaze, those rich chestnut brown eyes I used to get lost in, and saw nothing. No remorse. No fear. Just the faint flicker of relief. And I understood, with brutal clarity, that I'd been in love with the performance. The Patricia I adored had never truly existed. She had been a costume stitched together from charm, intelligence, and lies, a beautiful facade hiding a ruthless strategist. You're absolutely right, I said, voice even and composed. This marriage is over. Her reaction was immediate, an involuntary flash of satisfaction. For the first time in months, she looked almost at peace. As if she'd finally pressed the final piece of a long-drawn chess match into place. I'm glad we're on the same page, she said, straightening. We should tell the kids this weekend. I think that's best. I've already spoken with a family lawyer about a custody plan. Since I've been their primary caregiver, it makes sense for John and Robert to stay with me most of the time. Of course, you'd have visitation alternate weekends, maybe a midweek dinner. Patricia, I said, gently interrupting, before we get into custody and scheduling, there's something you need to see. Her voice faltered slightly. What do you mean? I stood and walked to my office. When I returned, I carried a thick manila folder, the kind attorneys use when cases get messy. Her smile began to fracture. I sat across from her again and opened the folder, letting its contents spill slowly across the coffee table. I know about William, I said simply. Her skin went pale. Her throat moved in a slow, strained swallow. Her hands, so recently composed, trembled in her lap. I know about the private bank account you've been funneling money into. I know about the recordings you manipulated to paint me as abusive. I know about your staged fights, your edited audio, the photos you deleted. The fabricated stories about your mother's medical issues. She's been gone for years, Patricia. Her face collapsed in on itself, shock, fear, disbelief, then slowly rearranged itself into something colder. I know about the hotels in Salem and Newport. The fake volunteer shifts. The late-night meetings with lawyers you never disclosed. I know everything. With each word, I laid down another piece of paper. Emails, screenshots, account statements, surveillance photos. Each one a nail in the coffin of her credibility. A photograph of her and William in the Fairmont lobby. A time-stamped hotel receipt. A message titled Freedom Fund Transfer Confirmed. And then her emails. He's so naive, it's almost sad. My lawyer says the abuse narrative is airtight. Once we get custody, he'll be lucky to see them twice a month. Patricia's mask finally shattered. Her breath caught. Her lips parted, but no words came. When she did manage to speak, it was a rasp. How long have you known? Long enough, I said. Long enough to shield our children. Long enough to make sure every single angle of your plan fails, legally, financially, and reputationally. And then it happened. The final curtain dropped. Her expression twisted, the warmth evaporating entirely. The woman I married was gone if she'd ever existed at all. Her eyes sharpened into something reptilian. You self-righteous bastard, she spat. You've been spying on me? Violating my privacy? Reading my private messages? Hiring someone to follow me around? What are you? Some obsessed creep with a god complex. I didn't flinch. I'm a man who discovered his wife was plotting to ruin his life and abduct his children. What would you have done? She stood abruptly, knocking her untouched wineglass with her elbow. It wobbled, then steadied like she was trying to do. She began to pace, fast and restless, her mind clawing for an escape hatch. You think this changes anything? She snapped. You think anyone will believe you over me? I've been the perfect mother, the devoted wife. Everyone loves me. I could still bury you in court with half this evidence. But you won't, I said, because now I control the narrative. I have proof. And the moment you try to weaponize lies, I'll release everything. To the court, to your lawyer, to your board of directors. Hell, I'll make sure your PDA friends get a copy. She froze. That was the crack. Her public image. The pristine mask she wore so carefully for the world. She stood there, blinking, breathing hard, calculating whether to escalate or retreat. I said nothing more. I didn't have to. The silence did all the work. Even if what you think you've found is real, Patricia said, her voice sharp and breathless. It doesn't matter. I can still tell a judge you were abusive. I have those recordings. Any court would believe a woman who felt threatened after discovering her husband was spying on her. Her tone was defiant, but there was a tremor beneath it. She was clinging to the last crumbling pillar of the house of lies she'd built. "No," I replied calmly. "You don't have those recordings anymore." She froze mid-step. "I had your phone and our computer examined by a cybersecurity specialist. Every audio file, every email, every manipulated recording documented. Verified. Debunked. It's all part of the official report now. You didn't create evidence, Patricia. You committed digital fraud." She stood motionless, like someone waiting for the ground to stop shaking beneath them. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that while you were scripting my downfall, I was building an airtight case against you. Unauthorized bank withdrawals, classified as financial fraud. Planning to flee the state with our children, attempted parental abduction. Manufacturing false evidence to support a fabricated abuse claim, conspiracy to defraud the court." I watched the color drain from her face. "Oh, and Patricia?" I added, my voice deliberate and cold. "Margaret knows. I sent her the emails, the photos, all of it." For the first time, Patricia blinked like I'd physically struck her. "She's filing for divorce tomorrow morning," I said. "She's also requesting full custody. Apparently, she doesn't share your romantic view of adultery." What came out of Patricia's mouth wasn't a scream. Not exactly. It was a broken, guttural sound. A strangled sob buried in disbelief. She grabbed her purse and moved toward the door like a wounded animal desperate for escape. But I wasn't finished. "The bank accounts have been frozen. Pending investigation, of course. The credit cards you were using are canceled. And there's a temporary court order, restraining you from taking John or Robert anywhere without supervision. Your attorney will explain everything tomorrow." She stopped, turned, and for one fleeting moment, something flickered across her face. Not regret. Exactly. Not remorse. Patricia wasn't built for that. But recognition. The faint realization that the man she thought was malleable had outplayed her completely. "I never meant for it to end like this," she whispered. "No," I said. "You meant to win. You meant to break me and rewrite the story. The only thing you didn't plan for was getting caught." She left without another word. That was 6 months ago. The divorce was swift and surgical. Her allegations of abuse disintegrated under the weight of forensic scrutiny. The manipulated audio files were exposed in court, dissected line by line. Her claim to primary custody dissolved the moment the judge reviewed the PI's report and the evidence of her attempt to flee with the kids. She now faces 2 felony charges, embezzlement and fraudulent misrepresentation, and is fighting to stay out of prison. The custody hearing lasted all of 20 minutes. No judge in their right mind was going to hand unsupervised access to a mother who fabricated evidence and planned to vanish with her children. As for William, his fall was even more dramatic. Margaret didn't just serve him divorce papers. She made sure every senior partner at Covington and Rowe received a personalized copy of his correspondence with Patricia. His client list evaporated in a week. His reputation, obliterated. He now works for a minor consulting outfit in Oakland, scraping together a fraction of what he used to earn. He sees his children every other weekend at a court-monitored center, just like Patricia. John and Robert, they've adjusted. Better than I dared hope. Children are surprisingly resilient when you give them something real, truth instead of illusion, steadiness instead of chaos. I never lied to them. I told them that sometimes adults make choices that hurt people. That mommy had made some very big mistakes. Mistakes that meant she couldn't live here anymore. They were heartbroken, yes, but not shocked. Because children know. They always know more than we think. Patricia tries, during her 2 supervised visits each month, to twist the narrative. She tells them Daddy wanted her gone. That I broke our family. But John is old enough now to see through veiled blame. And Robert, though younger, watches with sharp, silent eyes. They know who stayed. They know who held them at night when the world was falling apart. And when Patricia tries to rewrite history, they don't argue. They just look at her like she's a stranger telling stories they no longer believe. Where Patricia's office once stood, filled with the weight of hidden motives and carefully constructed lies, there's now a room full of life and spontaneity. The children's laughter echoes through the house again. No longer confined to the quiet spaces of a broken family, we have made room for healing, for growth. I've redecorated Patricia's old office into a playroom full of color, the kind of energy that was absent for so long. Pizza nights on Fridays have become a tradition. And Sundays? We build blanket forts, then fall asleep in them just because we can. There's no rush anymore. No pretending. Just simple moments of real connection. John has started learning to code. Robert, on the other hand, is planning a career as a professional joke teller. His humor is the thing that keeps us lighthearted when everything else feels too heavy. I take joy in seeing them not just survive, but thrive. We're creating a new kind of family here, a real family based on truth instead of lies, honesty instead of facades. There are no perfect days, no flawless routines. But there is freedom. Freedom to be who we are without the weight of someone else's expectations. There are times, though, when my mind drifts back to those 12 years. And the questions come, even now uninvited. Did she ever love me? Were any of her emotions real, or was I just a convenience until she found someone more appealing? I don't think I'll ever get answers to those questions. And oddly enough, I've made peace with that. What I do know without a shadow of a doubt is this. I once believed love meant giving everything. That to love someone was to open yourself completely, to trust them with your deepest vulnerabilities. I thought that love meant no boundaries, no defenses. I was wrong. That kind of thinking nearly cost me everything I held dear. My sense of self. My children. My security. But the man who fell for Patricia isn't who I am anymore. I've learned to love deeply but protect fiercely. I don't just believe in the goodness of people anymore, I've learned to see the darker sides too. And when I see them, I prepare for them. Because I know now that the most dangerous predators are the ones who know all your weaknesses, who share your bed and smile as they tear apart everything you've built. 3 weeks ago, I got an email from Patricia. She's living in a small, modest apartment now. Struggling to pay her bills. Her life is quieter, less glamorous. The email was short, an apology wrapped in guilt. She asked to meet for the sake of the kids, she said. She wanted to talk about rebuilding the family. But I deleted the email before I could think twice. Some things can't be fixed. Some bridges can't be rebuilt. Not when the trust is gone, when the damage has been done so completely that there's nothing left to salvage. I don't hate Patricia. I can't afford to. Hate takes up too much energy better spent on my children, on creating the life we deserve. But I will never forget the lesson she gave me. That the people you trust the most can be the ones most capable of destroying you. And that the key to survival isn't just weathering the storm, it's learning to rebuild stronger than before. John asked me the other day if I would ever get married again. I paused, thinking for a moment. Maybe, I told her. But only when the right person comes along. Someone who shows us day in and day out that they deserve our trust. Someone who chooses us not when it's convenient, but when it's difficult. Someone who will choose us when it matters the most. Until then, it's just me and the kids. And you know what? That's enough. It's more than enough. We don't need anyone else to complete us. We're enough on our own, and that realization, that freedom, has been one of the greatest gifts I could ever give myself. I've learned that sometimes the best form of revenge isn't grand gestures or dramatic confrontations. Sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to be destroyed. It's about choosing joy when bitterness would be easier. Choosing peace when anger would be justified. Choosing a better life because I refuse to let the past have the final word. Patricia thought she had outsmarted me. She thought I was too naive, too trusting, too caught up in my own ideal of love to see what was happening right under my nose. She was right about one thing: I trusted too easily. But she was wrong about the rest. Because when you threaten a father's children, when you attack everything he's worked for, when you mistake kindness for weakness, you awaken something far stronger than you ever expected. You awaken a warrior. And warriors don't just survive their battles. They rise from them. They make sure the ones who tried to destroy them know exactly why they failed. Every morning when I wake up in the house I fought to keep, when my children are safe under the roof we've rebuilt, I remind myself, truth will always outshine lies. Justice will always make its way to the surface. And the best way to defeat those who want to destroy you is to simply refuse to be destroyed. I once thought I was lucky to have Patricia. Now I know the true blessing was escaping her. Some stories don't have happy endings. But some stories? They have something better. They have true endings where the good guys win, where the children are protected, where a man who almost lost everything discovers just how strong he really is. And every day I get to wake up and live that ending. A life rebuilt, a future secure, and a family forged from the truth.